The mad emperor, Caligula. He ruled Rome like a god, then died like a monster.
On January 24, 41 AD, in a dimly lit, narrow underground corridor of the Palatine Hill, the most powerful man on earth was hacked to death. He sustained more than 30 stab wounds, delivered not by foreign enemies or battlefield rivals, but by the officers of his own Praetorian Guard. He was only 28 years old. In a brief, explosive reign of just 1,400 days, he had transformed from Rome's most universally beloved golden boy into its most reviled and terrifying tyrant. His name quickly became a historical shorthand for depravity, clinical madness, and the terrifying consequences of absolute, unchecked power. This was Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, known to history forever by a childhood nickname he thoroughly despised, Caligula. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus was born on August 31, 12 AD, in the coastal resort town of Antium, modern Anzio, Italy. As a Roman of the prestigious Julio-Claudian dynasty, his life was inherently bound to politics, military dominance, and the administration of an empire that stretched across the Mediterranean world. He served as the third Roman emperor, ruling from 37 AD to 41 AD. Caligula is considered massively influential not for his administrative triumphs or military conquests, but as the ultimate cautionary tale of autocratic rule. His reign exposed the fatal systemic flaw of the Roman Principate, a system meticulously designed by Augustus to look like a republic, which in reality placed total military, financial, and legal control into the hands of a single human being. Caligula was born into the very apex of Roman aristocracy. His father was Germanicus, Rome's most celebrated and beloved military commander, and his mother was Agrippina the Elder, the fiercely ambitious granddaughter of the first emperor, Augustus. From the age of 2, the boy accompanied his parents on military campaigns in the rough, untamed regions of Germanica. To amuse the legions, his mother dressed him in a miniature soldier's uniform, complete with tiny legionary boots. The amused soldiers affectionately nicknamed him Caligula, meaning little boot. However, his idyllic childhood was shattered by political tragedy. In 19 AD, when Caligula was just 7 years old, his father Germanicus died suddenly in Antioch at the age of 33, under heavy suspicion of being poisoned by agents of the reigning emperor Tiberius. The economic and political environment of Rome at the time was thick with paranoia. Without his father's protection, the young boy was thrust into a treacherous imperial court where survival was never guaranteed, and ambition was a death sentence. The sudden loss of his father initiated a period of unimaginable trauma that permanently warped Caligula's character. Following Germanicus's death, his mother, Agrippina, engaged in a bitter, vocal feud with Emperor Tiberius. In 29 AD, Tiberius ruthlessly purged Caligula's family. His mother was exiled and starved to death, and his 2 older brothers, Nero and Drusus, were imprisoned and executed. Caligula, still a teenager, was spared only due to his youth and his ability to completely mask his emotions. In 31 AD, at the age of 19, he was summoned to the island of Capri to live with the paranoid, aging Tiberius, the very man who had murdered his family. To survive, Caligula had to become a master of psychological suppression. He endured constant psychological torment, acting submissive and displaying absolutely no grief over the extermination of his mother and brothers. The Roman historian Tacitus later noted of this period that there was never a better slave or a worse master. This toxic environment of constant fear, sycophancy, and hidden daggers forged a young man who viewed power as the only defense against death. Caligula's transition from a captive survivor to the heir apparent was fraught with immense risk. On Capri, he formed a strategic alliance with Naevius Sutorius Macro, the powerful new prefect of the Praetorian Guard. As Tiberius's health rapidly failed, Macro threw his immense military weight behind the 24-year-old Caligula. On March 16, 37 AD, the 77-year-old emperor Tiberius died. Ancient historians heavily debate the exact circumstances. Suetonius claims Caligula or Macro smothered the old man with a pillow when he unexpectedly asked for food after being presumed dead. Regardless of the method, the Senate immediately voided Tiberius's will, which had required Caligula to share power with his younger cousin Gemellus, and declared Caligula the sole emperor. When he traveled from the Bay of Naples to Rome, millions of citizens lined the streets, sacrificing an estimated 160,000 animals in celebration to welcome the son of their beloved Germanicus. Caligula's breakthrough moment, the period that solidified his absolute power and popularity, was his spectacular accession to the throne in the spring of 37 AD. The public euphoria was unmatched in Roman history. He immediately set about dismantling the oppressive machinery of his predecessor's regime. He orchestrated a massive public relations triumph by sailing to the islands where his mother and brother had died, personally retrieving their ashes and returning them to Rome in a deeply emotional public ceremony. He cancelled Tiberius's hated treason trials, recalled exiles, and published the imperial budget for the first time, establishing an atmosphere of political transparency. Crucially, he secured the loyalty of the military by paying a massive cash bonus, a donative of 2,000 sesterces to every man in the Praetorian Guard. For the first 6 months of his reign, he was universally hailed as a liberal, generous, and enlightened savior. Despite his later reputation, Caligula's early reign involved significant administrative and architectural achievements. In October 37 AD, he fell severely ill, possibly with brain fever or encephalitis. While he physically recovered, historians often point to this event as the moment his behavior drastically changed, though modern scholars debate if the illness caused brain damage or simply made him realize how vulnerable he was to political plots. In 38 AD, he initiated the construction of 2 massive aqueducts, the Aqua Claudia and the Anio Novus, which were vital engineering projects necessary to supply Rome's rapidly growing population with fresh water. In 39 AD, he engineered his most famous public spectacle, the construction of a massive temporary pontoon bridge across the Bay of Baiae. Stretching over 2 miles, roughly 3.2 kilometers, the bridge was built using hundreds of requisitioned merchant ships. Caligula rode across it wearing the breastplate of Alexander the Great. In 40 AD, he successfully expanded the Roman Empire by ordering the assassination of King Ptolemy of Mauritania, annexing the vast North African territory and reorganizing it into 2 Roman provinces, which secured vital grain supplies for Rome. Caligula is best known not for his aqueducts, but for his breathtaking megalomania and shocking eccentricities. He became famous globally as the emperor who allegedly planned to make his favorite horse, Incitatus, a Roman consul, housing the animal in a marble stall with an ivory manger. He is equally famous for marching his heavily armed legions to the shores of the English Channel in 40 AD, only to order them to attack the waves and collect seashells as plunder from the ocean. However, modern historians heavily debate the context of these actions. Writers like Anthony Barrett and Alois Winterling argue that these were not the acts of a literal madman, but rather calculated, cruel theatrical performances designed to deeply humiliate the Roman Senate. By threatening to make his horse a consul, Caligula was brutally mocking the senators, implying that an animal could do their administrative jobs just as effectively. His fame, therefore, rests on his weaponization of autocratic power to degrade the traditional aristocracy. As a human being, Caligula was highly intelligent, profoundly cynical, and emotionally damaged. He possessed a razor-sharp, dark sense of humor and a genuine talent for public speaking. Having survived the extermination of his family by hiding his true feelings, he developed a profound distrust of the Roman aristocracy. His working style was erratic and deeply theatrical. He firmly believed in the absolute divine right of the emperor, abandoning the polite fiction maintained by Augustus that the emperor was merely the first among equals. Caligula demanded to be treated as a living god, forcing senators to grovel at his feet and kiss his ring. His motivation was rooted in a desperate need for self-preservation through absolute dominance. He frequently quoted a line from an ancient tragedy, "Let them hate me so long as they fear me." His greatest weakness was his inability to recognize that humiliating his allies and bodyguards was far more dangerous than fighting foreign armies. Caligula's aggressive personality inevitably generated massive political conflict. His most glaring failure was his catastrophic mismanagement of the imperial economy. By staging endless gladiatorial games, distributing massive public bonuses, and constructing opulent pressure barges, the ships, he entirely drained the Roman treasury, blowing through the staggering 2.7 billion sesterces left by Tiberius in less than 3 years. To recover the funds, he resorted to lethal extortion. He revived the hated treason trials, executing wealthy senators and confiscating their massive estates. This blatant tyranny alienated the exact institutions required to keep an emperor alive. Furthermore, his personal cruelty crossed fatal boundaries. He relentlessly mocked a high-ranking Praetorian Guard officer named Cassius Chaerea, forcing the grizzled veteran to use humiliating, effeminate passwords. Driven by political terror and personal insult, a conspiracy of roughly 30 senators and guardsmen formed, culminating in Caligula's bloody assassination in January 41 AD. Caligula's short-term impact was a brief but terrifying period of political instability. Hours after his murder, the Praetorian Guard bypassed the Senate entirely and declared his terrified, stuttering uncle, Claudius, as the next emperor. This single event had a massive long-term impact on Roman politics. It proved definitively that real political power in Rome flowed not from the laws of the Senate, but from the swords of the military. Socially and legally, Caligula stripped away the veneer of the Republic. He demonstrated that the Roman state was, in reality, a military dictatorship, and that the laws of the empire were entirely dependent on the sanity and whims of a single individual. In the sphere of culture and media, his life provided an endless well of material for writers and moralists, exploring the corrupting nature of absolute power, influencing everything from ancient political treatises to modern psychological studies of autocratic behavior. Today, Caligula is remembered almost exclusively as history's most infamous monster. His image is inextricably tied to sadism, incest, and insanity. This reputation stems largely from the surviving ancient sources, primarily the historian Suetonius and the senator Cassius Dio, who were writing decades after Caligula's death and represented the very senatorial class that Caligula had so viciously tormented. Over the past century, his image has undergone slight academic revision. While no serious historian defends his cruelty, modern institutions and scholars view him less as a clinical lunatic and more as a rational but deeply traumatized, inexperienced youth who used power as an instrument of sadistic satire. His legacy lives on robustly in modern culture, inspiring numerous works of art, including Albert Camus' famous 1945 existentialist play Caligula and various infamous cinematic portrayals. In modern political debates, his name is frequently invoked as the ultimate benchmark for despotic, unhinged political leadership. The life of Caligula is far more than a simple catalogue of ancient horrors. It is a profound study of human psychology under the pressure of limitless authority. He was a boy raised in the shadows of murder, taught that survival required deception, and suddenly handed the keys to the known world at the age of 24. His tragic trajectory reveals the terrifying reality that when a society places absolute power into the hands of an emotionally shattered individual, the state itself becomes a reflection of their deepest traumas. Caligula did not destroy the Roman system. Rather, his brutal theatrical reign simply exposed the violent autocratic reality that the system was already built upon.